Alcatraz. The Rock, a name that once sent chills down the spine of America's most dangerous criminals. It wasn't just a prison, it was the end of the line. If you ended up here, it meant you had nowhere else to go, no more second chances. Over the years, 1,576 inmates served time on this cold, wind-beaten island in San Francisco Bay. Some were notorious gangsters, others were violent escape artists, and a few were so dangerous, so unpredictable, that even inside Alcatraz, they stood out. Today, we're going deep inside the walls of the Rock to uncover 3 untold stories, each one more unbelievable than the last. Part 1. Alphonse Gabriel Al Capone, the most feared gangster in America. For years, Chicago had been his kingdom. He bribed politicians, owned the police, and ruled the city with a mix of charm and bloodshed. No law could touch him. No rival could dethrone him. In 1931, the mighty Al Capone was sentenced to 11 years in federal prison. First stop, Atlanta Federal Penitentiary, where he did what Capone always did. He bent the rules: fine rugs, handmade furniture, gourmet food smuggled in, guards who looked the other way, for a price. But then the transfer came. 1934. The papers called it "Sending the King to the Rock." Alcatraz, the cold, wind-battered fortress in the middle of San Francisco Bay. Here, Warden James A. Johnston ran a prison where no one, not even Al Capone, got special treatment. Capone's empire vanished overnight. His world shrank to a 9-by-5-foot cell. Bare concrete, a thin mattress, a bucket for a toilet. 1 page of mail a week, rare phone calls, total control by the guards. His new life was mechanical and merciless. 6:30, wake up, silence at breakfast, hours in the laundry, scrubbing filthy prison uniforms. For a man used to banquets and private orchestras, the monotony was torture. He tried his old tricks, charming guards, running small schemes, but nothing worked. To the inmates here, he wasn't Scarface anymore. He was just inmate 85. Then came the moment that proved it. In the showers, another prisoner lunged, stabbing Capone in the back with a pair of scissors. He survived, but for the first time in years, Al Capone had been hurt, and there was nothing he could do about it. In an unexpected twist, the former kingpin found refuge in the prison band, strumming a banjo for Sunday concerts. Visitors to the Rock still talk about it, the ghostly sound of Capone's banjo drifting through the cell blocks. By the time he left Alcatraz in 1939, ravaged by syphilis and stripped of power, Al Capone was a shadow of the man who had once ruled Chicago. The Rock had done what no rival, no prosecutor, and no bullet could do. It broke him. Part 2. Robert Strad, the Birdman without birds. Robert Stroud's life before Alcatraz was already infamous. Convicted of manslaughter in 1909, he killed a guard in 1916 and was sentenced to death. That sentence was later commuted to life in solitary confinement. While at Leavenworth Penitentiary, Strad began raising and studying canaries. Over decades, he became a self-taught expert, authoring 2 books on bird diseases and inventing cures that were sold commercially. The media painted him as a brilliant scientist, wrongfully kept in isolation. But guards and fellow inmates told a different story. They described a manipulative, short-tempered man capable of extreme violence. Strad's intellect, they said, was matched only by his talent for bending rules to suit himself. When Strad arrived at Alcatraz in 1942, his birds stayed behind. The Rock had strict rules. No pets, no personal experiments. Strad was housed in D Block, the isolation unit, where he could see the bay but not touch freedom. Here he turned his energy to reading and writing. He produced a massive manuscript on the U.S. penal system, arguing for reform. He filed legal petitions, some hundreds of pages long, challenging prison policies. Prison staff remained wary. Warden Johnston himself said, "Strad is the most dangerous man in the federal prison system." He believed Strad's intellect could inspire rebellion among other inmates if left unchecked. Despite the nickname Birdman of Alcatraz, Strad never kept a single bird here. The Hollywood movie starring Burt Lancaster softened his image, portraying him as a gentle, wronged man. In reality, Strad's record included assaults on inmates and threats to staff, even late in life. One fellow prisoner later remarked, "He wasn't a bird lover. He was a Strad lover. Everything he did was for Strad." Strad died in 1963 at the Medical Center for Federal Prisoners in Missouri, the same year Alcatraz closed, leaving behind a legacy of myth, truth, and moral ambiguity. Part 3. George Machine Gun Kelly, From Outlaw to Model Prisoner. George Kelly Barnes, better known as Machine Gun Kelly, built his criminal career during the chaos of Prohibition. His nickname came not from constant use of his Thompson submachine gun, but from carefully crafted publicity stunts. He wanted his enemies, and the police, to believe he was more dangerous than anyone else. Kelly's defining moment came in 1933 with the kidnapping of wealthy oilman Charles F. Urschel. The gang demanded and received a $200,000 ransom, worth millions today. But Urschel was no ordinary victim. Blindfolded and held captive for over a week, he carefully noted every sound, smell, and detail, later providing the FBI with a near-perfect account of his captivity. It was the end for Kelly. He and his wife, Catherine, were arrested in Memphis, allegedly shouting the now famous line, "Don't shoot, G-men," a phrase that would forever be linked to FBI lore. In 1934, Kelly was sent to Alcatraz. Unlike some who resisted the prison's rigid rules, he quickly adapted. Perhaps realizing there was no escape, Kelly kept his head down, working in the laundry and later in the Industries building. Fellow inmates gave him a mocking nickname, Pop Gun Kelly, claiming his violent reputation had been exaggerated. In truth, he had fired his Thompson gun far fewer times than his legend suggested. But Kelly wasn't entirely invisible. Guards considered him polite, reliable, and cooperative. He never attempted escape, never joined prison fights, and never tested the limits. This earned him small privileges, like working jobs that allowed him brief glimpses of the San Francisco skyline. Over time, Kelly faded into the background, replaced in headlines by newer criminals. He left Alcatraz in 1951 for Leavenworth, where he lived quietly until his death in 1954. For a man once feared nationwide, his quiet end was almost poetic. On the Rock, reputation meant nothing, and George Machine Gun Kelly became just another name on the roster. Alcatraz closed in 1963, but the stories of its most dangerous inmates still echo across the bay. It was a place where power vanished, legends faded, and reputations meant nothing. For some, like Capone, it stripped away their empire. For others, like Strad, it turned their isolation into a fortress of the mind. And for a few, like Kelly, it transformed them entirely. The Rock wasn't just a prison. It was the ultimate test of survival in a place designed to be inescapable. Thanks for watching Think Twist. If you enjoyed uncovering the untold stories of Alcatraz, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because history is full of stranger, darker tales just waiting to be told.